Welcome to ZAM Audiobooks. Today, we are discussing the book titled Give Yourself 90 Days to Change Everything.
Which is honestly such a fascinating premise because, we are all so obsessed with time.
Oh, totally. We're looking at a time frame today that, well, the military, Fortune 500 companies, and neuroscientists all secretly agree on.
Right. The 90-day window.
Exactly. It's like the exact lifespan of human willpower. Everything revolves around these 12 weeks. Corporate fiscal quarters, extreme fitness programs, rehab.
Yeah, it's everywhere once you actually look for it.
It really is.
Okay,
I mean, think about your own life for a second. You get this sudden burst of motivation, right? You want to change your career track or drop 20 pounds or start that side business.
The classic New Year's resolution energy.
Yes, you set this massive goal for the year, and yet, almost inevitably, by mid-February, that initial fire has completely burned out.
Oh, for sure. You look up, months have passed, and you're standing in the exact same spot.
Exactly. Feeling like life is just happening to you while you, just manage emergencies all day. So the premise we are exploring today is that 3 months is the ultimate biologically and psychologically optimized reset button for your entire reality.
And to really grasp that, it requires a profound shift in how we perceive time and, well, our own capacity for change.
Because we're socially conditioned to wait, aren't we?
We absolutely are. We wait for a massive life event to trigger a transformation, a new year, a sudden crisis, a milestone birthday.
Right. We carry this ingrained belief that transformation needs to be this dramatic overnight overhaul, like a lightning strike of endless motivation.
Exactly. But the reality of human neurobiology is that lasting change never happens with a lightning strike. It just doesn't.
So how does it happen then?
It happens through structured, intentional, and highly concentrated action applied over a very specific, manageable time frame.
The 90 days.
Yes. When you understand the actual mechanics of a 90-day window, you stop passively wishing for your circumstances to be different. You start engineering the reality, working with your brain's natural rhythms.
Instead of just constantly fighting against them. Okay, let's unpack this. Why exactly 90 days?
Right question.
Because frankly, if I decide I want to change my life today, why not a month? Or like we said, why not a year?
Yeah.
We all know the statistics on New Year's resolution. What is the actual psychological magic behind a 3-month window compared to everything else?
Well, it really comes down to a cognitive bias known as hyperbolic discounting.
Hyperbolic discounting.
Right. The human brain has a very complicated, almost adversarial relationship with your time. If you set a goal for a year out or even 6 months, the timeline is simply too vast.
The brain just can't process it as urgent.
Exactly. Your prefrontal cortex can't attach any real emotional regency to a 12-month deadline. Your brain looks at it and effectively says, hey, we have plenty of time.
No need to panic today.
Right. There is no immediate threat if we don't start today. So, you delay the work. You defer the discomfort.
And you end up procrastinating.
Yep. Until the timeline shrinks down to a few weeks. And I always like to point out, procrastination in this context isn't a character flaw. It's actually an evolutionary feature. Your brain is conserving energy for immediate threats.
Not distant, abstract rewards. Wow. So a yearly goal is basically an invitation for the brain to take a nap.
Pretty much. But then you look at the other extreme, right?
Like those 21-day detoxes or 2-week transformations you see online.
Exactly. And that introduces the complete opposite problem. If you set a goal for 2 weeks or 21 days, that is only enough time to experience the initial intense friction of a new habit.
The painful part.
Just the painful part. It's enough time to feel incredibly sore at the gym or suffer through the acute phase of sugar withdrawals, but it's not nearly enough time to see the compounding neurological results.
Because the brain hasn't had time to physically rewire itself yet.
Right. So 90 days sits perfectly in that psychological sweet spot. It's long enough that you can make massive progress and physically alter neural pathways.
But short enough that your brain perceives the deadline as immediate. It creates that healthy urgency.
Exactly. It forces you to take action today because 12 weeks moves fast.
It really does. I really like thinking about 90 days like a single fiscal quarter for your life.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
Right. In the corporate world, a quarter is the perfect amount of time to measure profit or loss, to test a strategy, see what's happening, and pivot if things aren't working.
It's long enough to gather real data.
But short enough that you absolutely cannot slack off. If you waste a week in a 90-day quarter, you feel it on the balance sheet. It demands your respect.
Precisely. It creates a container of accountability.
Yeah.
And within that fiscal quarter of your life, the transformation process naturally breaks down into 3 distinct 30-day phases.
Which isn't just arbitrary scheduling, right?
No, not at all. It aligns perfectly with how biological systems adapt to stress. You can't just sprint at maximum capacity for 90 days.
Your central nervous system would completely fry.
It would. There has to be an architecture to So the first 30 days are about preparation and initiation, overcoming that massive initial inertia.
The gravitational pull of your old life. That sounds exhausting.
It is. It's highly conscious, highly taxing work. But then the second 30 days are about stabilizing and cleansing. This is where the old toxic habits are actively being fleshed out and the new routines begin to stabilize.
The friction starts to decrease.
Yes. And the final 30 days, that last month, is about renewal and maintenance. This is where the new behaviors actually become integrated into your default operating.
It's remarkably similar to how the physical body heals, actually, like recovering from an injury. Your body first prepares an inflammatory response, then it cleanses out the damaged cells, and finally it renews the cellular foundation.
That's a really great way to look at it.
But wait, I have to push back here on the timeline itself. Isn't there a real danger in treating day 90 as this magical finish line?
Oh, absolutely.
Because people casually throw around that 2190 rule. It takes 21 days to build a habit and 90 days to make it a lifestyle. And people act like on day 91, they can just stop trying because they're permanently fixed.
That is a very dangerous myth. And honestly, a perfect example of how complex neuroscience gets bastardized into catchy self-help slogans.
So the 2190 rule isn't real.
Let's dismantle the 21-day part first. That idea actually traces back to the 1960s to a plastic surgeon named Maxwell Maltz.
Wait, a plastic surgeon?
Yes. He simply observed that it took his patients about 21 days to adjust to their new faces, or for amputees to stop feeling phantom limbs. He wrote about this in a book. It was a clinical observation about self-image.
Not a rigorous scientific study on habit formation.
Exactly.
Wow, so millions of people are basing their workout routines on how long it takes to get used to a nose job.
Pretty much. Modern research shows that depending on the complexity of the behavior, the environment, and the individual, it can take anywhere from 18 to over 250 days for a habit to become fully automatic.
250 days?
Yes. So treating day 90 as a magical finish line where you cross a ribbon and your flaws disappear forever, you're just setting yourself up for failure. Nothing in human behavior is permanently fixed.
So day 90 is just the point where the behavior has stabilized.
Yes, exactly.
It's not a finish line. It's more like, well, breaking ground on a new construction project. Or, an even better analogy, it's like hiking through a dense jungle.
I like this.
Right. On day 1, you are hacking through thick vines with a machete. It is exhausting. Every single step requires maximum willpower. But by day 30, you've trampled down a bit of a dirt path. It's a little easier.
Yep, less friction.
Then by day 60, it's a gravel road. And by day 90, it's a paved highway. It takes almost zero conscious willpower to walk down a paved highway. But, and this is the key to your point, if you stop walking that highway, the jungle is going to grow back over it.
That is a brilliant way to visualize neuroplasticity. The paved road is the neural pathway that has been insulated with myelin, making the signal travel faster and easier.
But it's use it or lose it.
Exactly. Neuroplasticity is a use it or lose it phenomenon. The jungle always wants to reclaim the road. So the goal of the 90 days is not to reach a finish line and stop.
It's to build a robust system that can withstand the inevitable chaos of life.
Precisely.
Okay, so if we're going to pave this road over 90 days, we have to talk about where we start. Because I think the instinctive reaction for anyone who wants to change their life is to immediately start doing more.
Oh, always.
You think, okay, 90 days. Tomorrow I'm waking up at 4 a.m. I'm going to run 10 miles, read a book a week, start a side hustle, and, I don't know, learn Mandarin.
Right, complete overhaul.
But the framework suggests the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Before you can add all these new positive actions, you actually have to brutally clear out the negative. You have to subtract.
Subtraction is the most critical yet most overlooked step in any personal transformation. You just cannot build a strong foundation of new habits on top of a crumbling structure of toxic routines and distractions.
It's mathematically impossible.
And biologically impossible to sustain. Change is not just about intensity. It's not about adding glamorous new routines to an already overcrowded calendar. It is fundamentally about eliminating friction.
You have to remove the mental noise and the energy drains first.
Because they are actively stealing your focus before you even have a chance.
And this all comes back to decision fatigue, right?
Exactly. Let's look at the mechanism of decision fatigue, the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for executive function, impulse control, complex planning. Well, it runs on glucose.
It literally consumes physical energy.
Yes. It has a finite, highly limited energy reserve every single day. Every choice you make, no matter how trivial, consumes a fraction of that.
So it's not just a metaphor when we say our brains are drained.
Yeah.
We are literally depleting a physiological resource.
We are.
Every single tiny choice, what to wear, what to eat for breakfast, whether to check that email right now or in 5 minutes, it chips away at that cognitive bandwidth.
It does.
It's like a smartphone battery. Every app you leave open in the background, constantly refreshing and pulling data, drains the battery a little bit more. By the time you need to make a high-stakes phone call, your phone is at 2%.
Yes, that is exactly what happens. If you waste your limited executive function on trivial choices early in the day, you will experience what psychologists call ego depletion.
Ego depletion.
Right. By 2 p.m., you will have absolutely nothing left for the decisions that actually shape your future, like focusing on deep work or resisting the urge to skip the gym.
So this is why you have to aggressively simplify your daily decisions before you try to build new habits.
Absolutely. You pre-plan your day the night before, you lay out your clothes, you automate your meal so you eat the same thing for breakfast every day.
Create strict batched routines for checking messages.
Yes. By automating the trivial, you protect your cognitive bandwidth for the monumental.
Okay, so we're subtracting the trivial decision. But this concept of subtraction extends far beyond just what I eat for breakfast. It requires a complete, almost ruthless audit of your environment.
It does.
And we are talking about 4 distinct layers of environment here: physical, digital, social, and mental.
Right. Because your environment is always stronger than your willpower. Always.
The physical environment makes intuitive sense. A messy desk creates visual friction. I remember reading that the visual cortex gets overwhelmed by clutter.
It does, constantly scanning everything.
Meaning every stray piece of paper on your desk is a tiny, unresolved decision staring at you, demanding a microsecond of processing power.
That's right.
But the digital environment, well, that is where most of us are completely losing the war.
Without question, your digital environment is a hyper-engineered battlefield for your attention.
Hyper-engineered.
Literally designed by behaviorists. If your phone is constantly buzzing with notifications, if your home screen is cluttered with social media apps that hijack your dopamine system, you are living in a continuous state of reactive.
Your sympathetic nervous system is constantly being pinged.
Exactly. You have to mute the noise, turn off every non-essential notification, put the phone in another physical room when you need to focus. You have to treat your digital space with the same boundary-driven respect as your physical home.
I mean, you wouldn't let 100 strangers walk into your living room shouting at you to look at pictures of their lunch.
Exactly. Yet we allow our phones to do exactly that to our minds all day long.
I love that image. But practically speaking, I have to push back here. My entire life is on that device.
Sure, most people's are.
My kids' school updates are on there. My boss texts me on there. My calendar alerts me. How do you reconcile a digital detox with the very real demands of modern work and parenting? We can't all just retreat to a cabin in the woods for 90 days.
That is a very valid point, and it's why subtraction isn't about absolute isolation. It's about intentional curation.
Curation.
Yes. It's the difference between default settings and intentional settings. You don't need to throw your phone in the ocean, but you can use Do Not Disturb modes customized for specific hours.
So setting up VIP contacts so only your boss or your child's school can break through.
Exactly. You can batch process your emails 3 times a day instead of keeping the inbox open constantly. The goal isn't to disconnect from reality. The goal is to stop letting other people's urgency dictate your attention by
moving from a reactive posture to a proactive one.
Precisely.
Which leads perfectly into the third layer, the social environment, the people you interact with.
This one is tough for a lot of people.
It is. We all know the old cliche that you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. But again, practically, what happens when the thing draining your battery is a person or an obligation? You can't just delete. I can't just uninstall a difficult, pessimistic coworker. I can't block a demanding family member.
This is where the concept of boundaries has to shift in our minds. We often think of boundaries as brick walls that we build to isolate ourselves from bad people.
Right, keeping people out.
But a much healthier, more sustainable way to view boundaries is as filters.
Filters, not walls.
Yes. A filter determines what you allow into your energetic space and what you keep out based on your current capacity. You may not be able to completely remove a pessimistic coworker from your life, but you can absolutely control the parameters of your exposure.
How does that look in practice during these 90 days?
It means limiting the duration of interactions. You say, hey, I have exactly 5 minutes to chat before I need to jump in deep work.
Setting a timer on the interaction.
Exactly. It means choosing not to engage in certain toxic topics of conversation, like office gossip. It means delaying your response to a demanding family member's text until you are in a grounded, emotionally regulated state of mind.
Rather than firing off an immediate stressed reaction.
Right. Subtraction in the social realm is about reclaiming your agency. It's about actively choosing what you allow to enter your 90-day focus, rather than passively absorbing whatever chaotic energy is thrown at you.
Okay, so once we've applied these filters, once the desk is clean, the phone is silenced, the social boundaries are set, and we've done our best to quiet the mental environment of rumination. We have successfully designed our environment for success.
We've created the space.
We have effectively created a vacuum. But now we have to figure out exactly what to put into that vacuum. How do we actually apply effort to guarantee transformation without burning out.
This is the fun part.
And this brings us to what I think is the most liberating mathematical concept in the whole framework, the 4% rule.
The 4% rule is elegantly simple, but incredibly profound when applied consistently. 1 hour is roughly 4% of your 24-hour day.
Just 4%.
It's just 4%. Most people vastly overestimate what they can accomplish in a week, which leads to burnout. But they severely underestimate what they can achieve in 90 days if they dedicate just 4% of their day to deep, uninterrupted, highly intentional.
Because we usually assume transformation requires an 8-hour daily grind.
Exactly. We are not talking about working harder for 10 hours a day. We are talking about fiercely protecting one single hour.
One non-negotiable hour a day to build a specific skill, improve physical health, or advance a critical project.
And doing that will drastically alter your trajectory over a 3-month period. This is tied to Parkinson's law, which states that work expands to fill the time allotted for.
Oh, I've seen that happen so many times.
Right. If you give yourself all day to write a proposal, it takes all day. And it's usually full of what researchers call attention residue.
Attention residue.
Yeah, where your brain is half thinking about the email you just checked while trying to write the proposal. Yeah. But if you give yourself one strict, uninterrupted hour, the brain hyperfocuses.
I like to think about deep focus, like a magnifying glass.
Oh, go on.
If you have scattered sunlight hitting a dry leaf on the pavement, it just warms the surface. It might feel nice, but nothing fundamentally changes. But if you take that exact same amount of ambient sunlight and focus it through a magnifying glass into one tiny, intense, concentrated point,
it creates combustion.
It can start a fire. That is what 1 hour of deep focus does. It concentrates your cognitive energy to the point of combustion. But when exactly should we be using this hour? Because it feels like not all hours are created equal. The morning seems to be the most critical real estate of the day.
Winning the morning is paramount. And again, this comes down to biology. We have something called the cortisol awakening response.
Cortisol, the stress hormone.
Yes, but in a good way here. When you wake up, your body naturally releases cortisol to get you moving. How you direct that initial physiological arousal sets the psychological tone for the next 15 hours.
So if you wake up and immediately grab your phone.
Exactly. If you start reading stressful emails or scrolling through polarized news, you are instantly taking that cortisol spike and attaching it to external threats. You are putting your brain into a reactive defensive state. You have handed the steering wheel of your day over to the outside world.
You are starting the day playing defense.
Yes. Instead, waking up with a specific intentional routine puts you in a proactive state.
Now, this doesn't have to be a complicated 2-hour billionaire morning routine, right? Ice baths and meditation retreats.
No, not at all. It can be incredibly simple. Hydrating your body, doing 10 minutes of light movement to increase blood flow, sitting in silence without a screen, and identifying your top tasks.
Yeah.
You are dictating the terms of your day.
And the most effective, mathematically proven way to leverage that proactive morning energy is to do the feared things first.
Yes. Eat the frog.
Eat the frog. Mark Twain's old advice: if it's your job to eat a live frog, it's best to do it first thing in the morning.
It's the best strategy.
If you have a terrible, scary, anxiety-inducing task hanging over your head, like calling a difficult client, having a tough conversation with a partner, starting a highly complex project, do it in the very first hour of your workday.
Because if you put it off until 3 p.m., it doesn't just sit there.
Right. It actively drains your energy all day long.
Yeah.
It's like carrying a heavy backpack where you try to run a marathon. But if you knock it out immediately, the momentum you get is unbelievable.
And we need to look at why that momentum is so powerful. Because procrastination, as we touched on earlier, is fundamentally an emotion regulation problem, not a time management problem.
Wait, explain that. What do you mean it's an emotion regulation problem?
When you avoid that difficult client call, you aren't avoiding the physical act of dialing a phone. That takes 10 seconds.
Right.
You are avoiding the feeling of anxiety, the fear of rejection, or the dread of conflict. Your amygdala, the threat detection center of the brain, perceives that task as an emotional threat and hijacks your prefrontal cortex,
compelling you to seek immediate relief.
Yes. And how do you get immediate relief? You organize your desk, you check your email, you scroll social media, you do anything other than the scary task.
But when you force yourself to eat the frog first thing in the morning, you are overriding that amygdala hijack.
What's fascinating here is absolutely the neurobiology of momentum, specifically something called a dopamine prediction error.
Dopamine prediction error.
When you dread a task, your brain predicts a highly negative outcome. It expects pain. But when you actually complete the task you were dreading, the reality is almost always better than the catastrophic prediction your brain made.
You realize, oh, that wasn't actually that bad.
Exactly. And this positive discrepancy triggers a massive surge of dopamine.
And dopamine isn't just about feeling happy, is it?
Not at all. Dopamine is widely misunderstood as the pleasure molecule, but it is actually the molecule of motivation and pursuit. It is the neurochemical that signals to your brain, hey, that was useful, do it again. It propels you forward. So when you perform small, deliberate, difficult actions consistently, day after day, that daily dopamine release literally rewires your neural pathways.
Over the course of a few weeks in this 90-day window, you stop seeing yourself as someone who avoids hard things.
You begin to perceive yourself as someone who takes action. You are no longer relying on external motivation from podcasts or books. Your identity itself is generating the neurochemical drive.
That is the holy grail, right? To have your identity do the heavy lifting so you don't have to constantly muscle through it.
It is.
But let's be real for a second. Let's talk about the days when the system breaks down. What happens when the mind fiercely resists? Because it absolutely will.
Without fail.
You wake up on day 17, it's raining outside, you slept poorly, the dopamine isn't flowing, and you just do not want to do the hard thing. How do you force yourself to take action when you feel completely unmotivated, or worse, when you are paralyzed by the fear of failure?
That is when the overthinking kicks in.
Yes, the overthinking.
Overthinking is perhaps the most insidious trap in personal development, precisely because it feels productive. We often disguise overthinking as planning or researching or just being careful.
We convince ourselves that if we just read one more book, watch one more tutorial, or analyze the market for one more week, we will finally be ready.
But in reality, chronic overthinking is just a sophisticated defense mechanism. As we discussed with the amygdala, the brain senses a challenge, anticipates potential failure or social rejection, and starts generating endless what-if scenarios.
Just to keep you safely exactly where you are in your comfort zone.
Yes.
It's the brain saying, hey, let's just sit here and think about swimming instead of actually getting wet.
Yes, that's exactly it. The rule to defeat this is simple in theory, but requires immense discipline in practice. You must act before the overthinking starts.
Act before the brain even realizes what is happening. It's like jumping into a freezing cold pool. If you stand on the edge, dip your toe in, think about how cold the water is going to be. Wonder if you should wait for the sun to come out from behind a cloud and analyze the temperature.
You are never going to jump.
Your brain will supply 100 logical reasons why jumping is a bad idea. You just have to launch yourself into the water before your prefrontal cortex can build a case against it.
Exactly. When you notice the hesitation, when you feel that familiar cycle of analysis paralysis beginning to spin up, you have to create a physical trigger to move immediately.
This is the mechanics behind the famous 5-second rule, right?
Yes, exactly. You count backward, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and physically move your body. By counting backward, you interrupt the default network of the brain that is spinning those anxious thoughts, and you assert prefrontal control.
Because every single time you act, regardless of how you feel in that moment, you are doing something profound. You are keeping a promise to you.
Yes, let's talk about that, because this seems to be the linchpin of the whole 90 days, the self-trust account.
The self-trust account. I love this concept.
It is the cornerstone of everything we all have an internal ledger of self-trust. Every time you keep a small promise to yourself, waking up when the alarm actually goes off instead of hitting snooze, doing the 4% deep work block you scheduled, making the phone call you planned.
You make a deposit into your self-trust account.
And every time you hit snooze, skip the workout, or avoid the call, you make a withdrawal. Self-trust is the ultimate foundation of genuine confidence.
That is a massive paradigm shift because we're taught that confidence is a feeling or a personality trait. Fake it till you make it right. We think confidence is walking into a room and thinking you are better or smarter or more attractive than everyone else.
Which is actually just arrogance masking deep insecurity.
Right.
True confidence isn't about comparison to others at all. Confidence is the internal evidence-based belief in your own capability. It is knowing deeply and inherently that you will do exactly what you said you were going to do.
When your self-trust account is full, you don't need external validation because your own track record proves that you are reliable.
It changes the entire perspective on daily tasks. It is no longer about whether you succeed or fail at the specific task, whether the client said yes or the workout burned enough calories.
It's entirely about whether you kept your word to yourself.
Exactly.
And I imagine this is especially critical during major life shifts.
Yeah.
Let's say you are using these 90 days to start a new job in a leadership role, or you are launching a business, or you've moved to a new city.
Right, highly transitional periods.
Those first 90 days in any new situation are famously critical. You are completely outside your comfort zone, the overthinking is usually at an all-time high, and you are trying to secure early wins without completely burning out from information overload.
Navigating those critical transitions requires a very specific tactical application of this 90-day framework. Let's take starting a new corporate role.
Yeah.
In a new role, the first 90 days dictate your long-term trajectory and how you are perceived by the organization. The trap most people fall into is either staying too passive, observing forever without acting, or coming in too hot, trying to change everything on day one and alienating the culture.
Right, so you have to balance rapid, intense learning with securing early, visible wins to build credibility.
Exactly. So how do you apply the 90-day framework?
I assume it starts with subtractioning.
Yes, you use the subtraction phase to avoid information overload. You don't need to know everything. You need to know the right things. You use the 4% rule to dedicate 1 hour a day strictly to relationship building or mastering a core process, not just answering emails.
And fighting the overthinking.
And perhaps most importantly, to fight the overthinking during this high-stress period, you must clearly write out the compelling why behind your actions.
The underlying purpose.
Yes. Why did you take this challenging role? Why are you enduring this discomfort of being the new person who doesn't know how things work yet?
When the purpose is clear and physically written down, it acts as a heavy anchor when the inevitable waves of hesitation, imposter syndrome, and self-doubt try to pull you under.
It absolutely does.
But let's get back to reality, because nobody is a robot executing perfect code.
No.
What happens when we inevitably face setbacks?
They will happen.
Let's say you are 3 weeks into your 90 days. You're doing great, your environment is clean, you are hitting your 4% rule, you are building self-trust, and then life happens.
You get a terrible flu.
You get the flu.
Mhm.
Or you have a family emergency that derails your schedule. Or, quite simply, you just drop the ball. You miss a day. You break a promise to yourself.
It happens to everyone.
It is incredibly easy to let that one failure spiral into a complete psychological collapse. You know the feeling. Well, I ate a donut for breakfast and ruined my diet streak. I might as well eat a whole pizza for dinner and completely give up on the 90 days.
Psychologists call that cognitive distortion all or nothing thing, and it is absolutely fatal to long-term progress. We have this irrational expectation of linear perfection.
But growth is never linear, is it?
Never. It is messy, chaotic, and full of regression. You have to fundamentally reframe how you view a setback. A missed day is not a failure of the entire 90. It does not erase the neural pathways you built over the previous 20 days.
It is simply a single data point.
Just a data point, not a character judgment.
Exactly.
The golden rule of habit formation, heavily supported by behavioral research, is to never let one missed day become two. If you miss a workout, you do not beat yourself up. You do not indulge in self-flagellation or guilt.
Because guilt is a useless, self-indulgent emotion that just drains more of that precious cognitive energy we talked about earlier.
Exactly. You simply accept the reality. You say, okay, I missed today. You forgive yourself instantly and you return to the system immediately the next day. Perfection is a toxic illusion designed to keep you paralyzed.
Consistency, even imperfect consistency, is what actually yields results. And to ensure that one bad day doesn't turn into a bad month, we have to detach emotionally from the failure. We need to look at our behavior objectively, like a scientist looking through a microscope, which means we need a system to monitor our progress.
We can't just rely on our memory or our feelings.
No, because our feelings will lie to us every single time. If we're in a bad mood, we'll look back and think we failed all week. If we're in a great mood, we'll put on rose-colored glasses and ignore our massive blind spots.
We need hard data.
Hard data. And that leads us to the absolute game changer of this entire 90-day process, the weekly reset.
The weekly reset is the navigational mechanism that keeps the entire 90-day engine on course. You cannot just put your head down on day 1, grit your teeth, and look up on day 90, hoping you ended up in the right place.
You drift completely off course.
You need a regular, non-negotiable cadence of review. Once a week, perhaps Sunday evening or Friday afternoon, you sit down and track your progress without a single ounce of self-criticism.
A purely objective, clinical review of the data.
And the data we are looking at is structured around what we call the tracking triad: actions, energy, and results.
Okay, let's break that triad down in detail. Actions seem obvious. Did I do the things I said I was going to do? Did I execute my 4% deep focus hour? Did I make the calls?
Did I avoid checking my phone during family time? It's binary, yes or no.
Right, but energy tracking, energy is a really interesting concept. Why is tracking our internal state just as important as tracking our external action?
Because actions do not happen in a vacuum. They require fuel. And as we discussed with the prefrontal cortex, that fuel is finite. If you are ruthlessly checking off all your action boxes, but you feel completely depleted, exhausted, cynical, and miserable, your system is not sustainable.
You're accumulating what is known as allostatic load.
Yes, the wear and tear on the body and brain from chronic stress. You will eventually crash. Tracking your energy means deeply asking yourself, how did I feel this week? Which specific tasks energized me and created flow? Which tasks drained me and caused friction?
Was my sleep adequate to support my ambition? Are the boundaries I set actually holding up, or are people leaking into my protected time?
Exactly. By tracking your energy, you can adjust your inputs and routines before you reach the point of burnout.
That is huge. It shifts it from a mindless grind to a dynamic, self-correcting system. And then the final piece of the triad results. This is about observing what has actually improved. But you have to look closely, right? Because early results in any 90-day protocol are often incredibly subtle.
Very subtle. If you are looking for a complete physical transformation or a double bank account, the early indicators that the system is working are quiet. It's slightly better sleep quality. It's a tiny bit more focused during your 4-minute block. It's noticing that a sarcastic comment from a coworker didn't trigger your anxiety as due.
These are the quiet indicators that the neural pathways are shifting long before the dramatic, visible external transformations occur.
Right. Tracking this data prevents emotional guessing. You know exactly where you stand.
And seeing that data, specifically tracking those micro wins, seems crucial for fighting off impatience, because impatience is the ultimate enemy of the 90-day reset. We live in an instant gratification world.
We want Amazon Prime delivery for our life goals.
We do. We expect to work out for 3 days and wake up with a six-pack. We expect to read one book on leadership and suddenly become a visionary CEO. But real growth, biological growth, is incredibly quiet before it becomes visible.
It is happening underground.
You have to focus on the process, on the daily execution of that 4%, and not obsess over the final outcome.
Impatience is simply a lack of trust in the process. It's a refusal to accept the reality of the plateau of latent potential. When you plant a seed, it develops a massive, complex root system underground for weeks before you ever see a green shoot break the surface.
If you get impatient and dig up the seed on day 10 to see if it's growing, you kill it.
Exactly. When you focus obsessively on the outcome, you are mentally living in the future, which creates chronic anxiety. When you focus on the process, the daily actions, the weekly reviews, the keeping of small promises, you are living in the present, which creates power and
You have to surrender the timeline of the macroscopic results and take absolute, uncompromising ownership of the microscopic execution of the habits.
If you do that consistently for 90 days, you achieve something far more valuable than just hitting a specific goal or completing a list of tasks.
So what does this all mean? When we zoom out and put all of these intricate pieces together, the ruthless subtraction of noise, the focused application of the 4% rule, the discipline of acting before the amygdala triggers overthinking, the compounding interest of the self-trust account, and the clinical objectivity of the weekly tracking, what is the actual ultimate goal of these 90 days?
The ultimate goal is not the completion of tasks. It is not even reaching the goal itself. The ultimate goal is an identity shift.
An identity shift.
Yes. You do not just want to be someone who occasionally does the right things when they feel motivated. You want to fundamentally change who you perceive yourself to be at a neurobiological. Over 90 days of consistent action, overcoming friction and objective review, your brain gathers enough undeniable historical evidence to form a completely new self-concept.
You shift from I do to I am.
Precise. You transition from being someone who tries to be disciplined to being someone who simply is disciplined. You become someone who does not quit when the dopamine drops. You become someone whose word to themselves is unbreakable.
And that identity shift is permanent.
Yes. Once you truly view yourself as a capable, resilient, focused individual, your behaviors naturally align with that identity without requiring monumental, exhausting willpower. The paved road is built. You have literally rebuilt your operational cloud from the inside out.
It's like upgrading your entire operating system. You aren't just installing a new fitness app or a new productivity app on a glitchy phone. You are changing the core code of how your mind processes friction and reward. Okay, let's recap this incredible journey for everyone listening.
To synthesize the overarching mission, you begin by recognizing the biological power of the 90-day window, a time frame long enough to physically rewire your identity, yet short enough to demand immediate, urgent action to combat hyperbolic dissing.
You start not by adding, but by cutting the noise.
Exactly. You ruthlessly subtract the physical clutter, the digital dopamine traps, the social energy vampires, and the mental friction that drains your executive function.
You then leverage the 4% rule, dedicating one fiercely protected hour every single day to deep, focused work, prioritizing the hardest, most anxiety-inducing tasks, first to capture the neurobiology of momentum.
You defeat the brain's evolutionary defense mechanism of overthinking by acting immediately, counting backwards to assert prefrontal control. You build an unshakable foundation of self-trust through a chain of kept promises.
And finally, you sustain this entire architecture, not through sheer will, but through a weekly objective review of your actions, energy, and results, allowing the process to quietly and inevitably forge your new identity.
It is a phenomenal blueprint for taking absolute control of your trajectory rather than letting life do.
It really is. But it leaves us with one final, deeply important and somewhat provocative question to mull over.
Yeah.
Let's say you do it. You put in the work, you hack through the jungle, you cut the noise, you build the self-trust, you achieve the identity shift.
Right.
What happens on day 91? Some psychologists argue that once a habit becomes truly automatic, once that road is fully paved, we actually experience habituation. We stop deriving the same intense joy and dopamine from it.
That's a great point.
Meaning, the true happiness, the true feeling of being alive, wasn't waiting for you in the new identity at the finish line. It was found in the 90-day struggle, the friction, and the active climb to get there. The 90 days gave you the foundation and built the engine, but continuous growth is a lifelong journey of seeking new friction. You've built a high-performance engine. Now, what new jungle are you going to drive it into? Thank you for listening to ZAM Audiobooks. If you enjoyed this discussion, don't forget to follow for more insightful audiobook conversations.